Picture this. You wake up in the wasteland, grab your dusty pack, step outside your shack, and before you finish your morning sip of dirty water, you are already statistically more likely to die today than the average person in the real world will be in their entire lifetime. That is just Tuesday in Fallout. And the thing is, dying out there is not one clean event. It is a whole spectrum, a sliding scale that ranges from, well, that was unlucky, all the way down to fates that make you genuinely uncomfortable to think about for too long. So today, we are breaking down the 7 levels of death in Fallout, starting with the most common mundane stuff that wipes out wastelanders by the thousands every day, and slowly descending into the kind of endings that make you grateful. The worst thing in your life right now is probably slow Wi-Fi. By the time we hit level 7, you are going to be questioning why anyone in this universe even bothers waking up in the morning, so let's get into it. Level 1, Bullet Roulette. Let's start simple, with the most basic, most common, and most boring way to die in the wasteland that is actually the exact same way most people would die in any lawless society throughout history. Death by someone that just happens to shoot you. Yeah, that's level 1. Welcome to the bottom of the danger ladder. And trust me, we've got a long way to fall from here. I know it does sound underwhelming, but hear me out, because the way this actually plays out in Fallout is honestly kind of insane when you sit down and think about it. The wasteland is overflowing with guns, like comically overflowing. Every single raider camp you stumble across has more firepower than a small country's National Guard. You will walk into a wooden shack that's literally held together by duct tape and rusty nails, and inside, you'll find a guy in football pads with a minigun, 3 grenades, a combat shotgun, and somehow also a Fat Man launcher loaded with a mini nuke. How? Where did he get this stuff? Did he have a coupon? Was there a Black Friday sale on weapons of mass destruction that I missed? The point is, ammunition and weapons are scattered across the wasteland like it's some kind of post-apocalyptic Easter egg hunt, which means the simplest way to end up dead is to just be in the wrong place at the wrong time when somebody decides your jacket looks pretty cool and they want it. And listen, there's no police out there, no court system, no detective showing up with a notebook to investigate your murder. If you get shot in the head behind a gas station somewhere in the Mojave, the only thing that's happening next is a bloatfly is gonna swing by, lay some eggs in your eye socket, and that's just kind of the end of your story. Credits roll. This is the death that statistically takes out the vast majority of wastelanders. Raiders, fiends, gunners, powder gangers, the pack, the cons, whatever flavor of human garbage exists in your particular region of the map, that's what's going to get you. The wasteland has most likely produced more raider factions than your hometown has produced functional traffic lights, and they all want one thing, your stuff. And the easiest way to get it is to remove you from the picture entirely. But here's the weird part. In the grand scheme of this list, this honestly isn't even that bad. I'm not saying I want to get shot. Please don't shoot me. But compared to what's coming up later, getting clipped by a 10mm round and falling asleep forever is honestly the dream scenario. It truly is the polite way to go. You don't have time to think about it. You don't suffer for weeks. You don't slowly forget who you are. You don't grow any extra teeth into your brain. You just kind of, stop existing. Quick, easy, slightly painful, and very common. The bullet is the merciful option. And I want you to keep that in mind because we're about to leave merciful behind and we're not coming back. While a bullet might be the most common death out there, it's not the one that's quietly killing every single wastelander still walking around right now. That honor goes to something a lot more invisible, a lot more patient, and a lot harder to dodge. Level 2, rad soup alright. Now we move into something every single wastelander has to deal with, whether they like it or not, and whether they know about it or not. Radiation poisoning. Here's the thing about radiation and Fallout. It's not really one death, it's more like a tax. A tax that everybody pays, all the time, every single day they're alive. And the wasteland is the world's worst landlord because that rent never stops being due. Every time you eat a piece of food, every time you drink water from a puddle that looks suspiciously glowy, every time you walk past a barrel that's hissing for some reason, your body is taking on a little bit more damage. And it all adds up over time, like compound interest. Except instead of building wealth, you're building cancer. The wasteland is basically one giant microwave that you're forced to live inside of 24/7 for your entire life. And your only protection is some sketchy Rad-X you bought from a caravan guy who definitely cut it with chalk dust to make a few extra caps. So, how does this actually kill you? Well, that's where it gets fun, because radiation comes with multiple flavors of death and you don't even get to pick. Option 1 is the massive dose. You wander into the glowing sea without proper protection, you get caught in a rad storm without shelter, you decide to take a quick swim in a reactor pool because hey, why not? And now your insides are basically soup. Your hair falls out in clumps. Your skin starts sloughing off like wet paper. You start vomiting blood. Your organs shut down one by one like somebody's turning off the lights in an old building. Within a few days, you're done. Good night. Option 2, which is honestly even more depressing in its own quiet way, is the slow accumulation of radiation. Every single wastelander is going through this right now, every day of their lives, whether they realize it or not. They drink dirty water because that's the only water there is. They eat irradiated meat because that's the only meat there is. They breathe air that's slightly toxic because that's the only air there is. And over the years, their bodies just slowly, quietly fall apart from the inside out. Tumors, cancers, organ failure, the works. You know how some people say they're not really living, they're just surviving? Yeah, in the wasteland, that's not a metaphor. That's a clinical medical diagnosis. And here's the really fun bonus round. Option 3. Sometimes the radiation doesn't kill you, it just changes you. We'll get into that one in detail later because it deserves its own dedicated spot on this list, but yeah, sometimes the rads have something planned for you that's way worse than just death. The kicker with radiation deaths is how completely unavoidable they feel. Bullets you can dodge, monsters you can run from, raiders you can talk down or shoot first. But radiation is literally in the air, in the water, in the food, in the rain that falls from the sky, and in the dust under your boots. Every single breath you take in the wasteland is shaving a little more time off your life, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't fight radiation, you can't bargain with it, and you can't outrun it. That's a pretty grim thought. So I'm gonna move on, because even if you somehow dodge the bullets and survive the rads, the wasteland still has a whole buffet of ways to take you out, and a lot of them involve being on the menu yourself. Level 3. Lunch meat okay. So let's say you've managed to dodge level 1. You've been smart, you've been lucky, you haven't gotten shot, and let's say you've been popping Rad-X like Tic Tacs and your insides are still mostly intact. Congratulations! You've already made it further than most of the population. Now you get to die in a much more interesting way. You get to be eaten alive. The wasteland's food chain got completely flipped upside down after the bombs fell. Humans are no longer at the top of it. Not even close. We're not even in the top 5. Honestly, we're sitting somewhere between Brahmin and mole rats on the menu, and that's me being generous because I like our species. Let's run through the highlight reel of what wants to make a meal out of you on any given Tuesday afternoon. First up, the Yaoguai, which are basically irradiated bears, except they're faster than regular bears, meaner than regular bears, and they've completely lost any natural fear of humans they might have had before the war. A regular bear might charge you to scare you off and then back down. A Yaoguai charges you because lunch is served and you, my friend, are the lunch. Then you've got your Mirelurks. These things are absolutely brutal. Imagine a crab the size of a small car, with a shell so thick that bullets just bounce right off, and the only weak spot is the tiny little face hiding underneath the armor. Good luck shooting that while it's pinching you in half with claws that could probably crack open a vault door if it really wanted to. And they come in queens too, which are even bigger, even meaner, and lay eggs that hatch into more of them. It's a whole vibe. Then there's rad scorpions, which are giant scorpions because of course they are. The glowing variant actually glows in the dark, which is helpful in the sense that you can see it coming, but also less helpful because by the time you see it, it's already too close. And then there's the cazadores. Fallout New Vegas players know exactly what I'm talking about. These are giant mutated tarantula hawk wasps that fly, hunt in groups, are extremely fast, and inject you with a poison that progressively gets worse the longer it's in your system. They are universally considered one of the worst enemies in the entire franchise, and I genuinely think the developers put them in the game just because they hate us personally. And then we have the absolute crown jewel of this category, the Deathclaw. 15 feet of pure muscle, immune to radiation, with razor-sharp talons that can shred power armor like it's wet paper, and the speed of an animal that should absolutely not be that fast at that size. If you see a Deathclaw and you're not already in a vehicle, or behind some kind of impenetrable wall, or maybe in another country entirely, you are going to die. No discussion, no appeals. And here's the really horrifying part. Deathclaws weren't even an accident. They weren't a side effect of the radiation. They were engineered. The United States military created them before the Great War to replace human soldiers in close combat, and then they escaped. Because of course they did. Because nobody in this universe has ever met a containment protocol they couldn't break. The worst part about getting eaten by something in the wasteland is the process. This isn't a clean, quick death. A Deathclaw doesn't kill you first and then eat. It just kind of starts the eating part while you're still alive, while you're still screaming. And there's not much you can do about it because at that point your arm is probably in a different zip code than the rest of you. Now, you might be thinking, okay, getting eaten sounds horrible, but at least it's natural. Animals Animals gotta eat. Circle of life. Big lion energy. And yeah, fair point. But what if I told you that some of the things out there in the wasteland weren't eating you for food at all? What if they were attacking you for reasons that have nothing to do with hunger and everything to do with the fact that they used to be people just like you? Because that's the next level down. And trust me, things are about to get personal. Level 4, human wreckage. This is where the list starts getting actually unsettling, because now we're not talking about animals or radiation or random violence. We're talking about getting killed by something that at one point in its existence was just like you, walked like you, talked like you, had a name, a family, a favorite color, and now it wants to bash your head in with a rusty pipe. I'm talking about super mutants and feral ghouls, the two big classic post-war humanoid threats that have been haunting every single Fallout game since the original came out in 1997. Both of these deaths hit a little different than getting mauled by a Yaogwai, because there's this extra layer of horror to them that's hard to shake. Let's start with the super mutants. These guys used to be regular, normal, average human beings. They had jobs, hobbies, and families they loved. And then they got dunked into a vat of forced evolutionary virus, and they came out the other side as a 7-foot-tall green monster with the muscle mass of a bulldozer and the IQ of a particularly dim toaster. The Master in Fallout 1, who's the original super mutant antagonist and honestly one of the best villains in the series, was actively kidnapping people across the wasteland and dipping them in FEV vats at Mariposa to make more soldiers for his army. Imagine being a regular wasteland scavenger, just trying to find some scrap metal to sell for caps, and the next thing you know, you're getting jumped by mutant arms, dragged down into a lab somewhere, and submerged in glowing green goo. And when you come out, you're not you anymore. Your friends won't recognize you, your family won't recognize you, and you probably won't even recognize yourself. That's a kind of death that's somehow worse than just dying, because you don't even get the dignity of being gone. Your body keeps walking around, doing things, killing other people, joining an army of horrors. The East Coast super mutants in Fallout 3 and 4 are dumber because the FEV strain in Vault 87 was different, and over generations they've gotten progressively less intelligent, but what they lack in brain power they make up for in sheer muscle and numbers. They roam the capital wasteland and the Commonwealth in packs, kidnapping humans not always to kill them, but sometimes to subject them to more FEV exposure and grow their ranks. And then you've got the behemoths, super mutants that just kept growing. There's no upper limit on it. They keep getting bigger as they age, and the ones that survive long enough end up the size of small buildings. They use street signs as clubs. They carry shopping carts on their backs like backpacks, and the Brotherhood of Steel in full power armor still takes serious casualties trying to bring one down. Then you've got the feral ghouls. Oh boy, the ghouls. Ghouls are humans who got hit with so much radiation that instead of just dying like normal people, their bodies got stuck in this weird in-between state. Some ghouls keep their minds completely intact and live for centuries, which is actually kind of cool if you ignore the fact that their skin is constantly falling off. But the ferals, those are the ones to actively avoid. The radiation finally cooked their brains all the way through, and what's left is basically a sprinting corpse that wants to claw you to death for reasons it doesn't even understand anymore. And they hunt in packs, always in packs. You could be exploring an old abandoned hospital or subway tunnel, thinking everything's quiet, maybe even feeling pretty good about your loot situation, and then suddenly you turn a corner and there's 20 of these things sprinting at you out of the darkness like an Olympic track team that's also actively decomposing. It's a horror movie moment every single time. Death itself is brutal. Ghouls don't use weapons. They don't need weapons. They just rip and tear and bite with whatever's left of their hands and teeth until you stop moving. There's no negotiating, no scaring them off, no reasoning. They are going to keep coming until either you are dead or every single one of them is dead. And the absolute kicker is that the person clawing you apart was, at some point, somebody, a parent, a kid, a spouse, who had a name and a life. Maybe they were a teacher, a baker, or a soldier. Now they're just a hungry shape in the dark, and you're next on the menu. At least when a ghoul or a super mutant gets you, though, it's over relatively quick, which is more than I can say for the next entry on this list, because this is where the wasteland stops being random and starts being cruel on purpose. Level 5, Vault Tech Specials. Alright, so we've covered the natural-ish deaths, bullets, radiation, monsters, mutants. All bad, all horrible, but all kinda make sense in the context of a post-apocalyptic world. This is evil by design, that was planned out in intelligent design complete with corporate signatures on the documents. Specifically, let's take a look at the ways Vault Tech found to kill the people inside them, which is honestly one of the most twisted, depressing chapters of the entire Fallout franchise. Quick refresher in case you've been living under a rock. Before the war, Vault Tech built these giant underground bunkers and sold them to the American public as a way to survive the nuclear apocalypse. Sounded great on paper. Pay your money, get a guaranteed spot in a vault, your family stays safe. Wholesome stuff. Except here's the thing, most of those vaults were never actually designed to save anybody. They were designed as long-term, multi-generational social experiments where the residents were the unwitting test subjects, and they had absolutely no idea. The people who paid in good faith for their spots were just lab rats with apartment keys. So let's run through some of the actual ways you could end up dead inside one of these places. Vault 11 in the Mojave told its residents that they had to vote for one person to be sacrificed every year, or else everyone in the vault would die. So every single year, the residents held an election. Political campaigns formed around it. Smear campaigns, coalitions. People would actively run for the position of getting murdered, because over time it got framed as a noble sacrifice. Imagine running attack ads in your homeowners association meeting to get your neighbor killed. That's Vault 11, and the punchline, the whole thing was a lie. There was no rule. The computer was just testing how long it would take before the population refused to comply. By the time the survivors of the resulting civil war made it to the central computer, it congratulated them on finally refusing and offered them a paradise. Almost all of them shot themselves instead. Then there's Vault 77, where a single guy got locked inside, alone, with a single crate of puppets. Just him and the puppets. That's the whole experiment, to see what one person does with infinite puppets and no human contact. He went completely insane, started talking to the puppets, eventually escaped the vault, and ended up wandering the wasteland with his puppet companion like it was a real person. I'm not making this up. The puppets won. Vault 92 was filled with talented musicians because Vault Tech had this brilliant idea to pipe a specific sound frequency through the speakers that was supposed to turn them all into perfect, obedient super soldiers. What actually happened is they all went completely homicidal and slaughtered each other in the recording studios. Surprise! The science didn't work, and now everyone's dead. Vault 87 was where the East Coast super mutants came from. The residents were force-fed FEV through the air vents without their consent, and the small handful who didn't die immediately mutated into the giant green monsters we've been talking about. So, if you've ever wondered where the Wasteland's mutant problem came from, congratulations, now you know. Vault 106 pumped psychoactive drugs into the air supply on day 10 of being sealed shut, just to see what would happen. Spoiler alert, what happened is, everyone went insane and started murdering each other. Vault 108 cloned the same guy, named Gary, over and over and over again. Just Gary after Gary after Gary, all genetically identical, all completely insane, all only able to say the word Gary. Eventually, the Garys killed all the regular non-Gary residents. Imagine your last moment on Earth being a wall of identical men screaming the same name at you. Vault 12 didn't have a vault door that was actually sealed, which was the entire point, because Vault Tech wanted to study the effects of long-term radiation exposure on a sealed population. The residents thought their door was just broken. It wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed, and the population eventually became the Necropolis Ghouls. Vault 101 was designed so the door would never open, ever, condemning the residents to live underground forever. Vault 112 had its residents trapped in a virtual reality simulation where a single mad scientist tortured them in different scenarios for fun for over 200 years. Vault 75 experimented on the children. Every single one of these is a death sentence wrapped in a brochure. And the worst, most messed up part is that the people who died in these vaults, they thought they were the lucky ones. They thought they were saved. They paid their money, kissed their families goodbye, walked down into those underground bunkers feeling grateful, and then the door closed behind them and the experiment began. Now, imagine that level of betrayal. Imagine sitting in your little vault apartment, raising your kids, feeling so safe, and having absolutely no clue that the corporation you trusted with your literal life has been studying you like a lab rat from day one. But as horrifying as the vaults are, they still have one small mercy. They at least technically end. The experiment runs its course. The residents die. The vault becomes a tomb. The next level on our list doesn't end. Not when you die, not when your friends die, not even after centuries. It just keeps going. Level 6, going feral. Okay, so we touched on this earlier, but it absolutely deserves its own dedicated spot on this list because, in my honest opinion, this is one of the most genuinely horrifying fates in the entire Fallout universe. And the worst part is, it could happen to literally anyone who's still walking around out there. Ghoulification. So here's how this actually works. If you take enough radiation, but somehow not quite enough to kill you, your body does this weird thing where it just kind of, mutates instead of dying. Your skin starts peeling off in patches, your hair falls out, your features start to melt and smooth over, your lifespan lifespan becomes basically infinite. Congratulations, you're a ghoul now. In some cases, this is genuinely not the worst outcome in the world. Plenty of ghouls in the Fallout universe are still completely themselves. They keep their personalities, their memories, their sense of humor, their sense of self. They just look like a piece of beef jerky that learned to talk, and some of them have lived for over 200 years, which is honestly a pretty solid run when you think about it. You've got characters like Hancock, the ghoul mayor of Goodneighbor, who's a complete legend, Daisy, who's been running her shop since before the war, Carol from Underworld in Fallout 3, Kent, even the ones in the new Fallout TV show. These people are still living their lives, running shops, making friends, just doing the wasteland thing with a few extra wrinkles. So why is this so high up on the death list if some of them are basically immortal lifestyle bloggers? Because of what happens to most ghouls eventually. There's this thing called going feral. It happens to a huge percentage of ghouls over time, and there is no way to predict when or how or why it'll happen to you specifically. You could be a perfectly normal, functional, thoughtful ghoul for 200 years, running a successful business, doing your thing, and then one random Tuesday morning, something snaps inside your head. Maybe it's continued radiation exposure. Maybe it's prolonged isolation. Maybe it's just time finally catching up to whatever pieces of your brain are still hanging on. The truth is, nobody really knows exactly what triggers it, which is part of what makes it so terrifying. But whatever the cause, your mind starts to slip. You start to forget things. People you've known for decades, suddenly you can't remember their names. Then you can't remember their faces. Then language starts going. Then thoughts start getting harder. Then memory itself becomes patchy. Until eventually, there's nothing left inside you but hunger, anger, and the urge to attack the nearest thing that moves. The worst part, the part that really keeps me up at night, is that some ghouls can actually feel it happening to them. They're aware. They know they're losing themselves piece by piece, and there's nothing they can do about it. There's no cure, no medicine, no doctor in the wasteland who can stop it. You just have to sit there, fully aware, and feel chunks of yourself disappearing one at a time. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing you don't remember your best friend's name, and the next week, you don't remember what your spouse looked like, and the next month, you don't remember any of the languages you used to speak, and you know what's happening to you, but you can't do anything to stop the slide. Some ghouls choose to end it themselves before they go feral. They walk out into the wasteland alone and put themselves down before they can hurt the people they love. Others, even worse, ask their friends to do it for them. There's a conversation you can have in Fallout 4 with a ghoul who's basically asking the sole survivor to please kill him before he loses himself, and it absolutely hits like a truck. And then there's the ones who don't go quietly, the ones who turn while they're still inside a settlement, surrounded by people who used to be their family and neighbors. They wake up one morning with nothing left in their head but hunger, and the first thing they do is attack the people they loved most. Then those people have to kill them, because what else can you possibly do? You can't reason with a feral. You can't talk them down. You can't bring them back. They're gone, and here's the part that really gets me. The ghoul's body just keeps going. The thing that used to be your friend or your spouse keeps walking around the wasteland for centuries after the actual person inside died. Their faces are still there. Their hands, their whole body, all of it is still moving, still in the world, but with absolutely nothing of them inside it anymore. That's not really a death. That's something worse than a death. Death has an ending. This just keeps going, possibly forever. You'd think we'd hit the bottom of the misery barrel by now, right? Like, what could possibly be worse than slowly forgetting who you are over decades and becoming a hollow monster wearing your own skin? Oh, sweet innocent viewer, we have one more level to go, and it makes everything we just talked about look like a relaxing day at the spa. Level 7, failed mutation. Welcome to rock bottom. Level 7, the worst of the worst. The absolute deepest, darkest, most horrifying way you can possibly die in the entire Fallout universe, and it's honestly not even close to the next runner-up. This one wins by a landslide. I'm talking about a failed FEV experiment. Now, we've touched on the FEV a few times already, the forced evolutionary virus. Normally, when you get exposed to it, one of two things tends to happen. You either die, or you become a super mutant. Both are objectively terrible outcomes, but both are at least definite, finite outcomes. The story has an ending, even if it's a bad ending. The problem is, the FEV doesn't always work right. In fact, the more research you do into the lore, the more you realize it almost never works right. Most of the time, what the FEV produces instead is something so much worse than just dying. Let's go to Huntersville in Appalachia, because this is where Fallout 76 absolutely absolutely went off the deep end in terms of showing the audience just how horrifyingly wrong FEV experiments could go. In Huntersville, the researchers, working on a contract for the military, were trying to refine the FEV formula. They wanted a more stable, more controllable supermutant. So they did what any normal, ethical, well-intentioned group of scientists would do, which is dump the virus into the unsuspecting town's water supply without telling a single person who lived there. Completely standard operating procedure. Nothing to see here. The results were not super mutants. The results were nightmares that the scientists themselves struggled to even describe in their official reports. Some of the subjects mutated in ways that made it physically impossible for them to breathe. Their lungs collapsed in on themselves. Their throats sealed shut. Their faces fused over their own mouths, sealing them in. They suffocated to death slowly over the course of hours, fully aware, unable to even scream for help because they had no way to make the sound come out. Some of them grew tissue in places tissue should not be growing. There are documented in-game cases of subjects whose retinal tissue, the stuff that's supposed to stay inside your eyeballs, just started growing. It was uncontrollably spilling out, spreading across their faces in masses. Their eyeballs became huge tumor-like growths that pushed apart their skulls from the inside until their heads couldn't even hold the shape of a head anymore. Some subjects had their teeth start growing, just kept growing right through the roof of their own mouths, up into their sinus cavities, and then, eventually, straight up into their brains. Their own teeth killed them by skewering their brains from the inside. Their own mouths murdered them, slowly, while they were awake. Some subjects were in so much constant, unrelenting, unbearable pain that they took their own lives just to make it stop. And here's the really chilling part. The official reports actually have a category for this. They wrote it down. They documented it. They had an entire data category labeled, "This was so unbearably horrible that the subject killed themselves to escape it, and they just kept doing the experiments anyway." This is the absolute floor of suffering in the entire Fallout universe. Not a quick bullet to the head, not a clean radiation death, not a ghoul slowly fading away over the centuries. This is being awake, alert, fully conscious, fully aware, trapped inside a body that is actively, violently, painfully eating itself in real time. There's just pure, raw, screaming agony, and a body that won't let you escape it. And the cherry on top, the absolute final twist of the knife, is that none of these people volunteered. None of them knew what was happening to them or why. They drank a glass of water in their own kitchens, in their own homes, in a town they'd lived in their whole lives, and then they woke up melting and dying from the inside out. If there is a worst possible way to die in the Fallout universe, this is it. Hands down, no contest. This is the bottom of the suffering barrel, and the barrel is on fire. And the fire is somehow also radioactive, and the fire is also screaming. And the really chilling thing about all of this is that Huntersville wasn't a unique event. The FEV is still out there, still in the environment. It's been mutating life across the entire wasteland for over 200 years at this point. There are absolutely more Huntersvilles out there, just waiting to be discovered. Some unlucky settlement somewhere is drinking from the wrong well right now, and they have no idea what's about to happen to them. That's the Fallout world, a place where the worst, most twisted, most unimaginably cruel thing you can think of has already happened to somebody, somewhere, and it's probably about to happen again, maybe even tonight. Final thoughts. Look, I'm not gonna lie to you, arranging this entire list out in one sitting was a little rough on me. Like, I knew Fallout was a dark series going into this, obviously, but actually sitting down and ranking out all 7 of these in a row really hammered home how absolutely brutal Bethesda, Obsidian, and the original Black Isle team really went with the lore of this universe. The Wasteland isn't just dangerous, it's actively creative about how it wants you dead. There's a whole spectrum of suffering out there, and most of them aren't even the result of the bombs themselves. The bombs were quick, but most of the worst stuff in Fallout is the result of what humans did to other humans before, during, and after the war. The FEV, the vaults, the death claws, all of it was a project. Everything intentional. That's the part that really sticks with me. The bombs were bad, but the bombs were over in 2 hours. What came after the FEV? The vaults, the experiments, the supermutants, the slow grinding poison of radiation? That's all on us. That's humanity. That's what people did to other people when nobody was watching and there were no rules left to follow. And that's honestly why Fallout works so well as a setting. It's not really a series about the apocalypse. The apocalypse is just the setting. The real subject is who we are as a species when there are no more rules to keep us in check. And the answer the games keep giving us, over and over again, is that we come up with some pretty messed up ways to make each other suffer when given the opportunity. So yeah, next time you're having a rough day, just take a second to remember that you're probably not currently growing teeth into your own brain in a basement in Appalachia. Things really could be a lot worse. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see the origins of every Fallout protagonist, click the video on the screen.